Being on the Eastern Front wasn't just war, it was pure survival. Soldiers faced freezing winds that cut through uniforms, mud that swallowed vehicles whole, and battles that went on for days without rest. Hunger, exhaustion, and fear were constant companion. It was one of the harshest, most unforgiving fronts in history. If you like these raw, quick looks into the past, a like or subscribe would mean a lot. And tell me where you're listening from. It's always wild seeing people from all over the world tune in to the same moment. All right, here's what it was really like to be on the Eastern Front.
You're a soldier, but mostly you're a walking, shivering clump of damp wool and regret. There's mud in your socks, in your sleeves, even in the cracks of your canteen lid. You've never seen mud like this before. Not the slippery kind back home, but a thick, sticky black sludge that clings like guilt. It's the sort of mud that whispers, "You're not leaving." It's autumn, 1941. You've crossed into Soviet territory as part of Operation Barbarossa, which, according to the posters, was supposed to be a lightning-fast campaign. Blitzkrieg, they said. Easy victory. By Christmas, you'd be sipping schnapps in Moscow. Instead, you're elbow deep in a puddle trying to fish out your rifle, which you dropped when you slipped face first into yet another crater that was absolutely not marked on your map. No one warned you about the mud. Not really. They told you about the Soviets. They said they'd run. Some of them did. But most didn't. And the ones who stayed, they know this land like a butcher knows bone. They retreat just far enough to let the weather do the killing. And here's the thing, no one puts in the recruiting pamphlet. The weather out here is personal. It has moods. It shifts like a drunk uncle at a wedding. Calm one minute, full blizzard the next. One day the roads are dust, the next they're bogs. You've seen tanks drown in mud, not sink, drown. You watched a panzer commander sob like a child as his machine sank axle deep into the ooze and refused to come back up. The crew abandoned it, still running, like some dying beast groaning in the mire. Your feet haven't been dry since the Vistula. You remember the feeling of dry socks, sort of like how you remember warm coffee or proper silence. Now everything is squish. Your boots squish. Your gloves squish. Your skin probably squishes. It's hard to tell through the numbness. You've developed something between trench foot and a fungal infection that your medic cheerfully refers to as local flavour. Historians still argue whether the German High Command truly understood what Russian autumn would do to their advance, or whether they simply hoped to outrun it. Spoiler alert, you didn't, and now you're paying for their optimism with every soggy step. It's not just the ground either. The air out here is wrong. The smell to it, a mix of wet straw, burning hay, cordite and unwashed men. You haven't bathed in weeks. No one has. You try not to breathe through your nose too much. It helps. The trees loom like witnesses. Birch and pine and blackened stumps, all crowding the roads and tracks like they're trying to herd you somewhere. You hear rustling constantly. Foxes probably, or rats, or partisans. Your ears never relax, not even in sleep. The quiet here isn't peaceful. It's waiting. Quirk of the night. You've started naming your lice. Ernst lives near your collarbone. He's been with you since Smolensk. You have a complicated relationship. Your uniform was meant for parades. It wasn't designed for frost or swamp. The wool is too thin, the boots too stiff, and your overcoat, issued by someone who probably works in an office in Berlin and has never seen a sunrise in the field, Doesn't even cover your thighs, so you've improvised. A scarf stolen from a farm, gloves made from a dismembered coat, extra socks tucked anywhere they'll fit. You'd trade your last cigarette for a single dry blanket, no questions asked. At night, the cold creeps in with a kind of smugness. It doesn't bite. That would imply speed. No, it seeps. It slides between layers, makes a home in your bones. You wake up shivering harder than you fell asleep, if you sleep at all. Sometimes you just lie there in the mud, eyes open, watching your own breath, and wondering if you'll still be warm enough to move by morning. And that's the worst part. You do move. You always move. Orders come down and off you go, slogging through terrain that laughs at wheels and mocks the concept of forward. You carry everything you own. Rifle, ammo, 3 days of food, if you're lucky, 1 photograph, and enough water to last you exactly as long as it doesn't freeze. Oh, and the mosquitoes. They don't care that it's cold. They thrive in this mess. You've seen swarms thicker than smoke. They bite through fabric. One night, you woke up with your eyelids swollen shut because one of the little monsters decided to snack on your face. Someone once joked that the mud had teeth. You laughed, then saw a horse get stuck, struggle, and never come back out. It disappeared beneath the surface like a shipwreck. The rider didn't even look back, just kept walking, eyes forward, as if he knew the mud had claimed its due and bargaining was pointless. There's a word that keeps circling your head, durchhalten. It means endure. The officers say it a lot. They bark it from trucks and trenches as if syllables could keep you warm. One guy even carved it into his helmet. He didn't make it past Minsk, and yet you keep going. Because stopping isn't an option. Because standing still in Russia in autumn means becoming a footnote, a frozen shape in a ditch. Another cautionary tale for the next guy who didn't bring waterproof socks. So here you are, miles from home, miles from food, ankle deep in a landscape that seems designed to break you. You weren't shot, you weren't blown up. But if you were hoping for a heroic story, sorry. This one begins in the mud, ends in the snow, and drips through every miserable second in between. And it's only just begun. It starts with noise, not a bang. Those are easy, predictable. Loud, yes, but familiar. No, this is something messier. A kind of layered industrial growl rolling in from the east, like a god clearing his throat. You recognise it too late. Tanks, dozens of them, mixed with the high-pitched whine of trucks, the whump, whump, whump of artillery prepping the field, and the deep bass rumble of a Soviet counter-offensive. It's 1941, and you're in the meat grinder now. You're part of Army Group Centre, one of 3 massive German military columns that ripped into the Soviet Union in a brutal summer blitz. Over 3 million soldiers, 600,000 vehicles, 750,000 horses, all funneled east like blood through an artery. And it worked. At first. You advanced faster than anyone thought possible. Soviet lines crumbled. Cities fell. You were winning. But then the gears started to grind. You're not a general. You don't read maps from 5,000 feet up. You feel maps with your feet, blistered, bleeding, wrapped in socks so filthy they could stand up by themselves. You don't know about pincer movements or strategic objectives. You just know you're being shoved forward into a Soviet formation that refuses to die. One of your friends, a machine gunner named Dieter, keeps repeating the same thing. They're not human. It's a joke, except it's not. He means the Russians, the way they take losses and keep coming. The way they charge tanks with grenades strapped to their chests. The way they scream their orders in a language you don't understand but now associate with terror. You're not sure if Dieter's admiration is real or just a coping mechanism. Probably both. The Soviets are learning, fast. In June, you were chasing them. By October, they're fighting smart. They've pulled back just far enough to stretch your lines, then slam you with artillery when you're out of gas and food. It's not elegant, it's brutal, it's efficient, like a bear trap. You step forward and it snaps. Historians still argue whether Stalin genuinely believed Hitler would attack, or whether he simply gambled wrong. Either way, when the invasion came, Soviet forces were caught off guard. But Russia has one endless weapon: space. You march deeper, the land opens wider, and the kill zone stretches for days. It's not just Russians firing at you, it's the land itself. Trees fall in suspicious patterns, mines hide in wheel ruts. You hear about entire columns vanishing after taking a shortcut through the woods. Later, someone finds tire tracks leading into the trees and nothing else. It's like the forest swallowed them whole. There's a phrase you hear a lot: Kesselschlacht, cauldron battle. It sounds almost cozy, like soup. It's not. It means your unit is surrounded, cut off, encircled, and then they cook you. You either break out or you get boiled down to bones and helmets. The Soviets love cauldrons. They don't always win, but when they do, it's messy. Your own officers still think they're winning. They talk about strategic withdrawals and reorganization of the front. You call it what it is: running. Every day your column is thinner. Fewer trucks, fewer guns, fewer men. The ones still around are quieter now. No more loud songs, no more confident talk about promotions or going home heroes. Now it's about survival. Now it's about who still has coffee rations or a working rifle bolt. Quirk of the day: some guys have started sewing Soviet buttons onto their coats. Not for disguise, just for luck. It's nonsense, obviously, but in a place where bullets come from trees and the cold steals your trigger finger, you'll take any superstition you can get. You pass through a village where no one makes eye contact. A grandmother stirs a pot over an open fire, while a grandson watches you from behind a wooden post, eyes blank. You're not sure if they're afraid or just tired of soldiers. You want to tell them you're not the monster they've heard about. But maybe you are. Maybe everyone is out here. Back in training you had this idea of war. Tight formations, crisp uniforms, precision. Out here your coat is patched with wire. Your helmet has a dent the size of a fist. And your only clean item is a spoon. You eat whatever fits in it. Sometimes that means shoe leather boiled with salt. Sometimes it means horse meat. Once it meant something you didn't ask about. You start to see things at night, shapes in the dark, lights in the trees. Sometimes it's just the northern lights, green curtains swaying across the sky. Sometimes it's not. You lie there, pretending to sleep, while your squad mate sobs quietly. You don't ask why. You know why. You feel it too. One morning your company gets the order to hold a position at all costs. You look around. The position is a ditch, a collapsed barn, and a single functioning MG42. The officer disappears 20 minutes after the first shelling, just walks into the mist. No one sees him again. Maybe he got lost. Maybe he didn't want to be found. By noon you've lost half your unit. By dusk you're deaf in one ear from the constant shelling. You're still holding the position technically. The barn's gone, the MG is jammed, and the ditch is full of things you won't talk about. But you're still here. You and a few others staring into the trees and waiting for the next wave. The Soviets attack in pulses, not waves exactly, more like heartbeats. You hear the scream of Katyusha rockets, then silence. Then the shrill whistles of charging infantry, then the crack of rifle fire, and then silence again. Each beat takes a piece of you, not always physically, though that happens too, but mentally, emotionally. You feel yourself shrink each time, like your soul is getting smaller. You learn to dig sideways into the trench so you can sleep in a foxhole without freezing. You sleep sitting up, rifle across your lap, one eye half open. You haven't dreamed in weeks. There's no room for dreams out here. Only instincts, only the next breath. One of your comrades has started drawing sketches of every dead soldier he finds. Just their faces, pencil on paper, no names, just images. You ask him why. He shrugs, says, someone should remember them. Later he gives you one, of a young Russian, maybe 16. You keep it in your breast pocket. You don't know why. And by the end of October, the mud returns. The meat grinder slows down, not from mercy, but from logistics. Trucks can't move. Horses drop dead. Soldiers like you are expected to keep going on foot, carrying supplies the machines no longer can. Your knees feel like they're grinding themselves into powder, and still the Soviets come. They've got winter coats now, real ones, quilted, padded, functional. Yours is still the same thin grey wool. When the first snow falls, you feel like history is laughing at you. You're not just outgunned, you're outdressed. You think about the word front. It sounds like a line, a fixed point, something you can hold or cross. But this front, it's a smear, a massive blur of cold and fear and motion. There's no behind the lines, there's no safe zone, only varying levels of exposure to misery. Welcome to the Eastern Front, where the only thing more relentless than your orders is the land itself. It's cold now, not chilly, not where's my scarf weather. This is the kind of cold that feels ancient, like it was already here before time, and it will outlast all of you. The kind of cold that doesn't just sting your skin, it burrows under it, takes hold of your marrow and refuses to leave. You stop feeling your fingers sometime around 0600. By 0700, you're not sure you even have fingers. Welcome to the winter of 1941 to 42, the one that broke machines, men, and illusions. The one where everything, rifles, trucks, lungs, just stopped working. You wake in your trench to the sound of boots cracking the surface of frozen mud. A few inches of frost hardened overnight, but don't get excited. It only makes the ground sharper. You're sleeping beneath a thin wool blanket wrapped around yourself like a sad burrito. Your breath plumes in the air, crystalline and slow, like even your lungs are tired. Your canteen is frozen solid. Your rations, when you get them, are blocks of meat and bread harder than your helmet. You learn to tuck food under your armpit for a couple hours just to be able to chew it. Water? You melt snow over a fire that you pray doesn't attract artillery. There's a joke going around. Don't bother heating the soup, it'll freeze again before it reaches your mouth. It's a bad joke. Because it's true, the engines don't start anymore. Panzer tanks sit like sleeping giants, frozen in place. Lubricants have congealed. Battery acid is slush. Some crews try to keep the engines idling 24/7 to prevent freezing, but fuel is low and the noise draws attention. So the machines die, and the men push. You've helped haul a 25-ton tank through the snow before, you're still not sure how. Historians still argue whether Hitler's refusal to equip troops with proper winter gear was arrogance or oversight. Either way, you wear what you were issued. Thin trousers, a tunic, Maybe a coat if you're lucky, and boots that might as well be sponges. You envy the dead. They don't have to feel this anymore. Quirk of the night. Some soldiers wrap newspapers around their legs for insulation. One guy even taped Goethe poems to his shins. Cultural armour, he called it. He froze to death in his sleep, but hey, at least he died literally. The Soviets, on the other hand, are thriving in this hell. They were born into it. Their soldiers wear quilted jackets, felt boots, fur-lined hats. They move like they belong here. You swear they can see through snowstorms. Their skis slice silently across the frost. Their sleds glide where your wheels grind. And worst of all, they smile. You spot a Soviet patrol once, gliding across a frozen river while your unit digs in half a mile away. They're like ghosts, quiet, confident, horrifyingly efficient. No bullets are fired. They're just there and then gone. You lie awake that night, watching the tree line, certain they'll come back. They always do. You learn to listen differently now. Not for the loud noises, but the absences. The silence before an ambush. The way wind stops just before a Katyusha barrage. The unnatural stillness that signals something alive is moving where nothing should be. By mid-December, your hands are cracked and bleeding. Your breath rattles in your chest like broken glass. The man next to you, Klaus, coughs blood and calls it winter wine. He laughs too hard, then vomits into the snow. It steams. You both stare at it for a moment like it's a work of art. Nothing surprises you anymore. Command still sends orders. Take this hill. Hold that village. You follow them. Mostly because not following them sounds worse. But the hills are covered in snow and the villagers are dead. You walk into houses stripped bare. No food, no firewood, sometimes no roof. Just empty shells echoing with past warmth. Occasionally, a child's toy sits abandoned in a corner, and you have to look away fast before your chest caves in. You meet a man who claims he hasn't slept in 6 days. His eye twitches, his boots are wrapped in burlap and his rifle's rusted shut. He offers you a cigarette stub the length of a toothpick. You take it, because it's the kindest thing anyone's done for you in weeks. One morning you wake to find a soldier next to you, frozen solid, sitting up, eyes open. You'd talked to him last night. He'd made a joke about marrying a nurse when this was all over. Now his eyelashes are frosted white and his skin is blue-grey like old bread mould. No one says anything. You just pull the blanket off him, because it's warm, and carry on. Your company numbers shrink every day, not from bullets necessarily, but from cold, sickness, starvation, and despair. Some simply vanish. You find their rifles, their footprints, then nothing. They walked off into the snow, into the forest, into oblivion. Chose not to face what came next, and somehow the fighting doesn't stop. The Soviets attack in temperatures that crack steel. They swarm your positions at night, flares lighting the snow like ghost fire. You return fire with numb fingers, your rifle slow to cycle, your bullets stiff. Sometimes your breath fogs your sights faster than you can wipe them. You shoot by instinct now, or not at all. You start layering everything. Scarves over hats, rags around hands, even old sandbags turned into makeshift cloaks. You'd wear another soldier if it meant keeping warm. Fashion has left the chat. You remember hearing the phrase General Winter in school. It sounded like a myth, a metaphor. Now you realise he's real. Not a man, but a force. Uncaring, relentless. Older than empires and far more thorough. He doesn't attack, he waits, and he always wins. There's a radio report one day about a new Soviet counter-offensive. You're told it's a minor push. That's a lie. They hit you with everything. Tanks with engines warmed by bonfires, soldiers singing songs about the motherland as they charge, air support that buzzes like angry hornets overhead. You fire until your barrel warps, then you throw snowballs. It makes no difference. Somewhere along the line you stop caring about winning. You just want to survive, to get through one more day, one more night, one more miserable, frost-bitten sunrise where your coffee is made of burnt crusts and your socks are still wet. Historians debate whether this winter broke the Wehrmacht. They argue about logistics, morale, fuel shortages. But you know better. You felt it break. In your knees, in your teeth, in the way no one smiles anymore, not even the officers. One soldier carves a small wooden owl and ties it to his belt. Says it watches over him. You ask if it works. He shrugs. Still alive, aren't I? You carry a postcard in your breast pocket. It's from your sister. She writes about how pretty the Christmas market looks back in Dresden. You read it at night like a prayer, then fold it away before anyone sees. Hope is embarrassing out here. And yet, in some twisted way, you keep moving. You keep going. Because the alternative is stopping. And you've seen what happens to those who stop. They freeze into statues. Quiet, perfect memorials to what this front really is. Not glorious, not noble, just cold. There's something almost comical about carrying a machine gun when you haven't eaten in 3 days. The weapon weighs more than a toddler, and your arms feel like overcooked noodles. Every step you take sinks an inch into the snow, and each pull forward feels like dragging a sled full of bricks. At some point you start naming your stomach cramps like old friends. There's Heinrich again, and Otto back for round 2. Food isn't just scarce, it's mythical. You've heard rumours of sausages in rear supply, real ones with meat. You'd trade your boots for a bite. You'd trade your soul for a hot potato. The last actual meal you remember? Something resembling soup made from powdered concentrate, boiled water, and one unfortunate beet. Even that was 3 days ago. It's not that supply lines are bad, they're just theoretical. On paper, you're well equipped. On the ground, you're gnawing tree bark. Logistics hasn't just failed you, it's ghosted you like a bad date. You write letters home asking for socks and salami. Your mother probably thinks you're exaggerating. You're not. The horses fare worse. Hundreds of thousands brought along to help carry gear and pull wagons now collapse in snowbanks, ribs showing, eyes wide and glassy. One morning you wake up to find the supply team's mule half buried in frost, frozen mid-chew. The officer shrugs, cuts off a chunk of flank. They say horse meat tastes sweet. You never wanted to find out. Now you know. You've learned to hoard, not valuables, calories. A crust of bread becomes sacred. A lump of sugar, gold. One soldier keeps a piece of chocolate hidden in a sock like it's treasure. He takes it out once a week, sniffs it and puts it back. He says the smell helps him sleep. You don't argue. Historians still argue whether the German supply system truly collapsed in Russia, or if it simply wasn't built for such a monstrous scale. Either way, out here, it's the same result. A truck gets stuck every 5 minutes. Fuel freezes. Roads vanish under snow or mud, and when they don't, they get mined by partisans who know the terrain better than any general. It's not just losing supplies, it's being slowly digested by a land that never wanted you here. Quirk of the week: your company has started assigning names to supply trucks, like pets. One's called Gretel, another the Widow. You cheer when they arrive, you mourn when they don't. Gretel never came back from the last run. The widow exploded on a mine. No one speaks during the burial. It's not just the cargo, it's what they represented. Hope, movement, connection to something beyond this frozen purgatory. And then there's dysentery. Sweet, glorious, morale-shattering dysentery. You know the signs. Someone running behind a tree with a frantic look in their eyes. You laugh until it's you. Then you pray for leaves that aren't poison and enough snow to wipe with. One guy didn't make it back. They say he sat down and never stood up again. Water isn't safe either. Melted snow, contaminated, nearby stream, full of something that smells like regret. You boil it when you can. When you can't, you hold your breath and hope. Your stomach now makes sounds that would frighten wild animals. It's musical almost. If there were a band called the Eastern Front Stomach Orchestra, you'd be first chair percussion. Still, command acts like everything is fine. Orders keep arriving, usually from someone 50 miles behind the line. Advance to the next position, they say. Dig in here, they say. You want to reply with a strongly worded letter composed entirely of expletives, but instead you shoulder your rifle and trudge forward. Because that's what you do. You come across a burned out village one afternoon. The buildings are just teeth now, blackened timber rising from snow like a ruined jaw. No people, just a well. You lower a tin cup. The water is warm. Too warm. You don't drink it. Inside one of the houses you find a chicken coop. Empty, of course, but there's a single feather. You pocket it. Not because it's useful, but because it's different. It reminds you of colour, of life, of home. You don't tell anyone. They'd laugh. Or worse, ask to eat it. The mail arrives once every 2 weeks, maybe. Letters from home are now prized currency. You trade them like cigarettes. Not the words themselves, but the idea of them. Heard from Berlin yet? Someone asks. You nod. Lie. Say your sister is fine, your father sends prayers. The truth? You haven't had a letter since October. But sometimes lies keep people warmer than mittens. You've stopped expecting warmth from anything else. The firewood is gone. You burn old crates, fence posts, sometimes furniture. One guy burned a chessboard and later cried about it. Said it reminded him of his grandfather. No one mocked him. You all understood. You try to imagine what the people back home think. They probably picture soldiers in tidy rows, marching with clean boots and full bellies. They don't see the frostbitten toes, the lice colonies, the night spent coughing into your elbow while pretending it's not blood. They think war is loud and fast. You now know the truth. War is slow. It drags. It oozes. It waits. One day, the cooks kill a dog. A German shepherd that had been following the unit for weeks. No one speaks at mess. The stew is oddly rich. You eat it anyway. No one mentions the collar buried behind the tent. You dream of food constantly now. Not feasts, just basics. A fried egg, a hot cup of coffee. Real coffee. Not that powdered swill they call ersatz. You can still smell it if you concentrate hard enough. Sometimes you think it's real. Then you wake up biting your blanket. The Soviets know your supply situation. You know they know. They've started taunting you with propaganda leaflets dropped from planes. Your wives are warm, one says. Your Führer is lying, says another. You collect them like trading cards. One of them has a cartoon of Hitler frozen in a snowdrift. You tape it to your mess tin. It makes you chuckle, and that's worth something. You don't know how far the front is anymore. Not really. The lines blur. Some days you march 10 miles and don't see a single enemy. Other days they're already waiting. You don't ask how. You assume the trees told them. The officers are quieter now, less shouting, more whispering, less confidence, more caution. One carries a flask of schnapps and sips from it like it's medicine. He once yelled at you for not saluting. Now he salutes you first. You start measuring time in absurd ways. That happened 3 mouldy loaves ago. Or wasn't that before Hans lost his toe? Calendars are meaningless. You stopped counting days a while back. Now it's all moments, meals and frostbite. Still, you march. Because you're told to. Because you don't know what else to do. Because somewhere deep in your animal brain, you believe that one more step might bring you closer to rescue, or retreat, or maybe just a warm barn. But mostly you march because stopping means letting it all catch up. The hunger, the cold, the aching loneliness, this soft, persistent question, is anyone even coming for us? It's dark when the shouting starts. It's always dark now. Daylight barely lasts, and even when it does, the sun never fully commits, just sort of hovers behind clouds like it's afraid of what it might see. But this shouting, it cuts through the fog like a thrown knife, and it's not German. You reach for your rifle with hands that no longer respond like they used to. They're stiff, cold, slightly purple around the knuckles. You fumble the bolt, knock over a tin cup and curse under your breath. Someone else is already firing. You hear the crack of a Mosin Nagant, then another. Then the thump of mortars, just far enough to shake your bones without ripping them apart. Here we go again. The Red Army is back, and this time they're angry. You were told they'd break, that Soviet morale would shatter like glass, that peasants in boots held together with twine couldn't stand against a mechanized modern army. That might have been true for a week or two, but not anymore. Now they're dug in. Now they fight like wolves cornered in a den, and now they have something you don't. Momentum. One officer described them as barbaric, another said they lacked finesse. But when they hit your lines, they don't need finesse, they need grit. And they've got plenty of that. A lot more than you'd expected. They swarm with a terrifying lack of self-preservation. You've seen entire squads charge across open fields under machine gun fire just to reach your trenches. Sometimes it works. Sometimes they die in heaps. Either way, they just keep coming. Historians still argue whether this was sheer desperation, patriotism, or the invisible pressure of commissars with pistols at their backs. Probably all three. But when they yell, "Hurrah!" and charge through the smoke, you don't have time to philosophize. You just aim and hope your trigger finger isn't too numb to function. They say the Soviets started issuing more automatic weapons too. PPSHs, those drum mag monsters that spit bullets like sewing machines. When you hear one go off, it's not just loud, it's personal. Like the guy holding it really wants you, specifically, to have a bad day. You see them differently now. The enemy, not as faceless, not as primitive. One of them was wearing glasses, wire-rimmed, like a school teacher. He hesitated before firing. You didn't. You think about him a lot, especially at night. You've started keeping a count. Not of kills, you stopped that weeks ago. No, now you count how many keep coming. It's like trying to count snowflakes in a blizzard. You shoot, they fall, more come. It's endless. And it's not just infantry anymore. They're throwing everything at you. Mortars, light tanks, even sled-mounted machine guns. You once saw a group on skis firing on the move like ghosts out of a nightmare. One guy swears they trained their dogs to carry explosives under tanks. You laughed at that, until you saw it. You find a Soviet bunker after a skirmish. Inside, a pot of boiling water, 2 tin cups, chessboard, and a pair of mittens knitted with red thread. You sit down, just for a minute, just to feel something that isn't frozen. You look at the chessboard. The game's half finished. Black has the advantage. You wonder who they were, if they survived, if they'll come back for their mittens. You don't take anything, you just leave. Somehow that feels like the most human thing you've done all week. Later, your squad comes across a downed Soviet aircraft, a biplane, half buried in snow. The pilot didn't survive the crash, but someone had painted a face on the nose, bright red lips, exaggerated eyelashes, grinning teeth. You stare at it for a long time. You can't tell if it's funny or horrifying. Maybe both. There's talk now, quiet talk, about Soviet morale rising. That's the word they use. Rising. While yours? Yours is buried somewhere under 12 inches of snow, next to your last clean pair of socks. The Soviets have something you've lost, the belief that they might win. That's dangerous. You overhear a captured Soviet soldier whispering to a medic, "Mother Russia is endless. You cannot kill what has no end." The medic scoffs. But you lie awake later, staring at the stars, wondering if he's right. Quirk of the day, someone swiped a Soviet harmonica. Now every night ends with sad, wheezing melodies that make the frost seem even colder. The guy playing it doesn't know any songs. He just breathes into it and lets the wind do the rest. You call it the lament of the lost lung. Soviet artillery is also improving. Used to be sporadic, wild, inaccurate, easy to time. Now it's precise. Now it's psychological. You can tell when they're coming because the birds vanish, the air changes, and then, boom, shells crater the earth like angry gods. You've learned to time your blinks to avoid blinking while a shell hits. Just a little superstition, but it feels like it helps. A comrade named Willie loses his hearing after a nearby shell explodes. He spends the next 2 days smiling and nodding at everything, completely unaware of how loud he's become. It's funny until it isn't. One day, you watch a Soviet soldier tend to a wounded comrade under fire. He drags the man behind a tree, pulls out a blood-soaked rag and wraps it with a gentleness you wouldn't expect in this place. You don't shoot, you just watch, and then you look away. Later you help your squad drag a wounded man through the snow. He's babbling about apples, red ones, from his garden. Says he left them on the windowsill. Keeps asking if you see them. You say yes. Of course you do. Even though the only thing in front of you is a shattered village and the faint smell of burning pine. You pass through a Soviet trench one morning after your unit pushes forward. It's quiet now. Frozen bodies in positions that look like sleep. A pot still hanging over a cold fire. A book left open, pages fluttering in the breeze. You pick it up. Can't read the language, but you recognise the structure. Poetry. There's a photograph tucked inside. A girl. Maybe 6 years old, grinning with one missing tooth. You fold the page back and slide it into your coat. You don't tell anyone. You start dreaming in Russian. Not full sentences, just sounds, names, screams. Once you woke up shouting Pekota, infantry. You've never studied the language. Now it lives in your bones. The Soviets know the terrain. Their tactics are evolving. They flank at night, bury traps beneath snow, use frozen rivers as highways. One night they crossed a lake that should have been impassable. Dozens of them. Quiet, swift, deadly. By the time your sentry noticed, they were inside your lines. Your sergeant calls them rats. You think that's unfair. Rats are scared. These men, these women too, yes there are women fighting in Soviet uniforms, aren't scared. They're furious. They've lost homes, families, everything, and now they want it back. You respect them. That doesn't mean you like them. It just means you stop underestimating them. You stop pretending they're amateurs. They're professionals now. Pain turns people into experts. One of them shouts during a firefight. Not a battle cry, just your name. Your first name. You never find out how, but it follows you. Echoes in your skull when you try to sleep. Someone out there knew who you were and wanted you gone. The line between us and them blurs in strange ways. You start copying their tactics, building snow trenches, wearing stolen gear, eating what they leave behind. You find a pair of Soviet gloves that are warmer than anything you've ever owned. You put them on, you don't take them off. You don't talk about it. Sleep is a luxury, a gamble. You close your eyes and you might wake up to a bayonet in your ribs, or not wake up at all. So you nap in shifts, 10 minutes here, 20 there, always with one boot on and your rifle within arm's reach. You sleep in snowbanks, on tree roots, inside ruined barns, even once under a burned-out Soviet tank still warm from the fire. You've learned to sleep through shelling. You've learned to sleep sitting upright. You've learned not to dream. But when you do dream, it's of forests, not peaceful ones, not fairy tale forests. No, these are Soviet forests, Russian forests, the kind that hum with menace. Trees so tall they block the stars, branches that creak like warning whispers, and somewhere out there, partisans. You hear about them before you ever meet one. Whispers, rumours, whole convoys vanishing without a trace, bridges collapsing an hour after someone crossed, rail lines torn up overnight. A captain once said, "We don't fight men in the woods, we fight shadows." He was right. They're not soldiers in the usual sense. They're ghosts with rifles. Farmers one day, assassins the next. Historians still debate how many partisans were actually active in 1941 and 42. Some say tens of thousands. Others argue the numbers were inflated by paranoia and propaganda. You don't care. All you know is that you're afraid of trees now. You flinch at the sound of wind in branches. You don't walk near forests if you can help it. And when you do, your finger rests just a little tighter on the trigger. They hit fast, hit hard, and vanish. 1 second, you're escorting a supply truck through a back road. The next, a tyre blows, a grenade rolls under the axle, and someone screams. By the time you scramble into a ditch, they're already gone. All that's left is smoke and the distant sound of skis slicing through snow. You start travelling in pairs, then in groups, then with armoured vehicles, if you can get them. Still doesn't help. The partisans don't fight fair. They poison wells, they sabotage stoves. One time they rigged a latrine to explode. A dark joke, except it worked. You meet one, once. Sort of. He's captured after an ambush. Just a boy, maybe 17. Dirt on his cheeks, calm eyes, no fear. The officers shout questions at him. He says nothing. They beat him. He says nothing. He's taken away. You never see him again. But you remember his face. Not because of what he did, but because he didn't blink. Quirk of the day, you're issued a pamphlet titled How to Spot a Partisan. It includes drawings of villagers looking suspicious. One is labelled Too Quiet. Another, Eyes Dart Sideways. You pin it to your dugout wall as a joke. Later someone tears it down and uses it for toilet paper. No one complains. The villagers are another question entirely. Are they collaborators? Prisoners? Family of fighters? It's impossible to tell. You enter a small hamlet and people look through you. No anger, no fear, just this hollow, unreadable gaze. You offer a child a piece of bread. She takes it without speaking and walks away. You never see her again either. There's a man in your platoon, Franz, who swears he can sense when partisans are near. He calls it the tingle. The others laugh. Then one night he stops mid-step on a patrol and whispers, "Something's wrong." 10 seconds later, a tripwire sets off a mine. He saves 5 lives. They stop laughing. You stop walking on paths. That's another lesson. Roads mean exposure. Roads mean traps. You bushwhack now, through waist-deep snow, past thorn thickets, over frozen streams. It's slower, yes, but you're still alive, aren't you? You start noticing the silence. It's not peaceful. It's heavy, oppressive. It means someone is watching. You learn to read the forest like a book. Broken branches equals recent passage. No birds equals danger. Fresh boot prints equals don't follow. You're not hunting anymore. You're avoiding being hunted. One evening, you arrive at a supply depot in the woods. It's been destroyed. Burned, looted, nothing left. A sign hangs from a tree. In charcoal, "This is our land. Leave." It's written in shaky German. It's meant to scare you. It works. The partisans don't just fight with bullets. They fight with dread. Psychological warfare. You find your comrade's helmet hanging from a tree branch one morning. No blood, no body, just the helmet. And that's worse somehow. Command orders you to clear an area. That means burn the forest. Burn the villagers. Sleep now. Let yourself sink deeper into that perfect relaxation. Your eyelids are heavy. So heavy it would take too much effort to open them now. Your limbs feel pleasantly weighted, impossible to move even if you wanted to, which you don't. You just want to drift all the way down into deep, restful sleep. That's it. Just let go completely. The day is done. The work is finished. Nothing more required of you now except to rest, to renew, to dream perhaps of different possibilities, different worlds. But for now, just sleep deep and peaceful, easy and calm. Sleep now. Sleep well. Drifting deeper with each breath down and down into perfect, complete rest.